concierge was right. In the parking lot, there was a rusty little bus that could hold up to 30 people. In irregular intervals, the bus coughs out puffs of black smoke. From a distance, it looks as if the car is only held together by dirt and rust. You assume that at some point this bus did have a color. Way back when the earth was young and the old gods reigned supreme. The windows are dirty and steamed up from the inside. You can make out a few silhouettes in the bus. It's definitely nowhere near half full. This is going to be a very exclusive wellness program. A man with a strangely deformed face leans against the open door to the bus. He smokes a cigar. A photo of him could be printed on cigarette packs as a warning to keep people from smoking. Oh. He is wearing a green shirt which has a squiggly G embroidered on his left breast pocket. As you look him up and down, he blows out smoke. It's just as black as what's coming out of the exhaust pipe. This must be the wellness expert Ezekiel. Oh. Good afternoon, you greet him. Is this the wellness program Caligula? The man nods and answers without taking the cigar out of his mouth. Yep. He nods towards the open door. Well, at least he's unambiguous. The stairs leading up to the bus wobble with every step. Inside the bus, there are 5 couples of all ages. You stand in the aisle. Greet your fellow travelers. You wave, hello, everybody! Hey, the younger people mumble in response. There are 2 younger couples in their early 20s, 2 middle-aged couples, and one which looks like they're beyond the age of 60. The older ones just give you a reserved nod. Understandable. Some people like to be left alone when on holiday. Other people is their idea of hell. A creaking, squealing sound. Meanwhile, your tour guide has gotten into the bus and dropped into the antique driver's seat. He pulls a lever and the bus door closes. While the bus pulls off down the parking lot, your guide croaks into a loudspeaker system in the bored voice. Dearly beloved, my name is Ezekiel. I'll be your driver and wellness consultant for the day. It is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Gilman Hotel to the Caligula Wellness Program. I must remind you that it is strictly prohibited to take photographs of our wellness facility. No photos. Ow. The speakers crackle and emit shrill noises. This, however, does not seem to bother Ezekiel in the slightest. We begin our wellness program on the popular and world-famous Innsmouth beach. No photos. You look around indecisively. Remind me, what was the rule about the photos again? No photos. Ezekiel doesn't even bother to turn around. Let's ask the driver about wellness. You're beginning to wonder what you have gotten yourself into here. Excuse me, but which? No photos. What kind of wellness treatment do you offer? Without turning around, Ezekiel points to a sign above the driver's area. Don't talk to the driver while the vehicle is moving. You look around indecisively. Let's interview fellow travelers about the missing girl. You get up and stand in the aisle of the bus. The eyes of all 10 passengers are now directed at you. They look partly curious, partly annoyed, as if you wanted to sell them something. You take out the photo, hold it up, and walk slowly down the corridor. This girl here disappeared a week ago. There's a chance that she's still in Innsmouth. I've seen her. Yeah, me too. Yes, I think I've seen her too. What? 3 people have seen her. The tourists take a closer look at the picture again and nod vigorously. A young blonde woman with a nerd shirt. A nerd shirt? What's a nerd shirt? A young blonde woman with a nerd shirt and sunglasses in her hair gives you more details. We saw her downtown in a pedestrian zone. Her boyfriend puts his arm around her to clarify the we. Can you be more specific? The 2 giggle happily. We tried a few games in the arcades she was walking around. Must have been early afternoon. She spent most of her time where the main games are. Mean games? Mean games? You don't quite know what she means by that. Well, you know, her boyfriend interferes. Shooty, shooty, kill, kill, mean. You decide to educate them. Slap some noob slayer wisdom on her. Today's computer games are an exciting new medium. I could give you several titles that put even expensive blockbuster movies to shame. You correct your passenger's empty stares. The two stare at you uncomprehendingly for a few seconds. Then the young woman has an idea on how to get this conversation going again. What? You keep trying. Don't give up. Well, actually, disregarding some of the simpler first-person shooters, was still impressed with their design and level structure. Most games these days focus on interesting storytelling. Wouldn't you like to be the main character in a 20-hour adventure? Making key decisions for yourself? Really calling the shots? Let me push my retainer back in. Oh, honey, look, more boats. With fake enthusiasm, they look out the window and ignore you completely. Well, at least you tried. You clear your throat to get back to the matter at hand. How do I find the arcades? When you stand in the town square with the big creepy fountain, you'll be able to see a shopping street. The woman explains and makes somewhat unclear gestures. You have to walk down the street, and at the very end you'll see the archway. There are lights on it and everything. It's done up retro style. So the arcade seems to be Tabitha's favorite place. Good to know. You decide to make the best of this forced break and stay in your seat. Outside, saddled buildings pass you by, then a cemetery and a repetitive chain of small fishing tackle shops, markets, and houses with drawn curtains. On your left, you see houses. Oh, sounds through the PA system. On your right, you can see more houses. For a few minutes, the bus drives through some narrow, winding alleys. Increasingly, the simple houses give way to bigger warehouses. The distant cries of seagulls suggest that you are approaching the harbor. The bus finally turns into a road that runs parallel to the quay wall. The other tourists start cackling excitedly as they spot the fishing boats and a smaller boat in the harbor basin. On your right, you can see the sea. I'm going to look at the harbor. You join the tourists and look through the faded windows. Indeed, boats in a harbor. Gosh, who'd have thought? Boats of all shapes and sizes continuously enter and exit the harbor. Nets upon nets are being emptied into the big freezer boxes. Local trades are being sealed with handshakes, and at the end of a wide headland, a huge lighthouse watches majestically over the bay. Traditional sailing boats of this type are not seen that often nowadays. The sailors from Innsmouth do not seem to have much time for engines. They really seem to know a thing or two about seafaring. Screw the kid. Kid'll find themselves. No sooner has some semblance of respect for these weirdos formed in your mind than the figures at the pier turn towards your bus and stare after you. No matter how capable and skillful they are, they remain creepy. The bus leaves the paved road and goes down a narrow gravel path that leads directly to the beach. A faded sign shows the way to the Innsmouth Beach Bar, which is actually just a wooden hut surrounded by mostly empty deck chairs. With a jolt, the bus suddenly stops. You've come to the end of the gravel road. Final destination, everybody disembark now. Ezekiel's bored voice comes from the loudspeaker. The front entrance opens, and the driver shuffles calmly down the stairs. Final destination? You just gotta love these people. I wonder if that's a reference to the movie. One after the other, your travel group gets out of the bus. In the meantime, your wellness expert has lit up another cigar. The Gilman Wellness Program is best enjoyed in our Caligula feel-good bathrobes, which are available in our beach cabins. Strict dress code for hygiene reasons. He gestures limply to some crooked wooden huts flanking the path to the sandy beach. In our beach cabins, you will find everything you need. You can lock up your clothes there. Oh, how lovely of you, coo the tourists. They really spoil you here. Maybe these people are right after all. Yes, exactly. After all, you get all this for free, and one should be open for new experiences. Has city life embittered you? Should you perhaps spend more time with moronic tourists in order to appreciate the simple pleasures of life again? That's why you're supposed to change your clothes. Nah, you go in the cabin. What the heck. Some of the cabins are not yet occupied by the others, so you have the choice. You enter the dilapidated cabin, rancid cabin, or the cabin smelling of urine. I'm gonna go into the one that smells like urine. The urine will keep us safe. Excellent choice. It even has a key. In the small hut, there isn't even room to stretch out your arms. A simple nail was driven into the wall at eye level and serves as a hook for the bathroom. As you take off your coat, you notice some deep scratches that run across 3 of the wooden planks. So there's a nail at eye level for the bathrobe hook. You don't recall Ezekiel mentioning any wild bears. You actually managed to get undressed without smashing the nail into your eye. You've stripped naked in tighter and more uncomfortable places, but that's a story for another day. You fold your shoes and clothes into a neat pile. That bathrobe may be a few sizes too big for you, but that doesn't bother you much. You lock your cabin from the outside and store the small key in your breast pocket. You are ready for wellness. Ezekiel shuffles in front of your wellness group. Your little group is now walking the last stretch across the beach. The sight in front of you is hardly a postcard motif. Are there even postcards from Innsmouth? Innsmouth, a rough wind lets the even rougher bathrobe whip against your skin. Dark clouds now come up on the horizon. You notice how all the colors of the sea, the beach, and the people seem to be swallowed up by the strange light conditions here. You hold your hand up in front of your face. Your skin looks gray and matte, but you still feel relaxed. The murmur of the sea invigorates you. You feel a deep longing rising within you, a serene sense of inner peace and freedom. A monotonous beat. The sound seems to come directly from the beach bar a few hundred yards off in the distance, which appear to be surrounded by about a dozen people. Given the changing weather, it's perhaps no surprise. What else is one supposed to do on this beach, apart from drinking cheap cocktails and dancing to bad music? Further away, untouched by tourism, wellness, and scratchy bathrobes, you can make out the lighthouse of the harbor. Ezekiel leads you directly to the shore. Strange, how is this supposed to work? You had expected small pavilions where you'd be massaged and pampered after a short dip in the sea, but apart from the bar a few hundred yards away, there's nothing to be seen far and wide that could suggest wellness, except for the metal frame. A kind of cage stands in the shallow water. It's just big enough for your group to fit in. Is this the spa you were told about? Ezekiel does walk up to the rickety cage and unlocks its padlock. With a tired smile, he opens the gate and points inside. Uh-oh. Voila! Watch how the situation unfolds. You hold back while the other tourists reverently touch the brown metal bars as if the rusty cage was a World Heritage Site. Are you missing something here? Phase 1 of our treatment is seawater therapy. Ezekiel makes a lazy gesture towards the tetanus-ridden cage. During a 2-hour session, the participant's body is exposed to healthy sea air. At the same time, regular rinses ensure firm skin. The effect is particularly positive for participants with neurodermatitis. He looks at the guests. Phase 1 is followed by the deep treatment, if you please. Visibly bored to death, Ezekiel points to the open gate of the metal cage. Two of the younger ladies venture carefully into the shallow water. They gurgle excitedly as their feet dip into the cold, muddy seawater. Their partners follow them, and so does the rest of the group. One after the other, the tourists enter the cage. You are the last to follow them in. As you step through the gate, your hand slides over one of the slippery metal bars. It doesn't take long until a cold shiver runs down your spine. There's not much room in here. Your group stands uncomfortably close to each other, and even the women who were cackling excitedly only a moment ago seem to be a bit uncomfortable with this form of wellness. A loud noise brings you back to reality. It almost sounded like a lock had snapped shut behind you. This is confirmed when you turn around. You see how Ezekiel takes a step back and lets a set of keys disappear in his pocket. Studies have shown that the rest and relaxation massively increases the effect of therapy. I'm off. Good luck. Hang on. Luck? If you're always skeptical about new experiences, you'll never have any exciting holiday stories to share. At last, your turn to tell crazy stories from your trips. And it's true, you already feel more invigorated than you have in a long time. The sea air cleanses your lungs, the sea water cleanses your toes. The whole sky is now covered by gray clouds. Seagulls circle on the horizon as if weightless. You cherish the moment. You pass time with guessing games. It doesn't take long before you manage to infect the majority of your group with your enthusiasm for monotonous guessing games. It's the elderly grandma's turn. It's the elderly gentleman's turn right now. I spy with my little eye something beginning with S. The shit wellness treatment? Correct. I spy with my little eye something beginning with F. The freezing people in this cage? Correct again. Hey, I'm good. I spy with my little eye something beginning with G. The gray sky. Time passes, at times agonizingly slow. At times agonizingly slow, at others as if in a flash. That's pretty normal. In the first half hour, the tourists still make a small talk, but even the encouraging words and stories become less and less frequent. It's almost nightfall. The sun is about to disappear behind the roofs of the town. The light of the sun drains away, and with it, any residual heat. The only constant is the sound of the waves and the steady rise of the sea level. By now, the water reaches up to your knees. Two young women from your group seem increasingly concerned. I must say, I'm getting really cold. How much longer is this going to take? You decide to get the group to panic.
He's not coming back. That was the plan. We were locked in here and I left to die. If we don't starve, the morning will do the rest.
The two women gasp for breath like fish who have just washed ashore. There are a lot of concerned looks.
If you don't have anything helpful to contribute, why don't you just shut up? Barks the older man.
A metallic sound echoes through the night. For a second you think that there might be someone approaching to rescue you, but it's only a few of your fellow inmates who are rattling at the bars. Men and women encourage each other. They shake and tug at the bars in the hope that it might be rusty and unstable somewhere. Another hour passes. Without actually saying it out loud, your group has given up hope that Ezekiel might return. Their tired faces and shivering, sunken figures let you know all you need to. The men make several more attempts to break the lock or the bars, but even though the metal bars look old and rusty, without a tool, there is no chance. In the end, their attempt only leads to more despair. You look at the sea. You look out at the sea through the metal bars, but you're not quite sure what you're actually looking for. The light of the moon illuminates the night almost as if you were standing under a street lamp. On a stage in the limelight. On a stage in the limelight. The sea levels continue to rise. The water reaches your hips by now, and the waves come and go. The horizon is infinite blackness. You remember the lighthouse and start to wonder if it has ceased operation. Another man-made source of light would be a small comfort in the freezing cold night, but there is nothing there. What was that? The elderly lady suddenly shrieks. She tears your group out of its communal experience of self-pity and shivering. What do you mean? Her husband gives her a reassuring hug. There was something out there. Trembling, she points in the direction of the open ocean. The group shifts its position to the side of the cage. Curiously, they press themselves against the grid to get a glimpse of the something. Could it have been a diver? Someone from the Coast Guard? I saw something, but it wasn't human, she screams. It was big and had huge eyes and claws and teeth. Sharp teeth. The group exchanges glances. One by one, they step back from the bars. The short-lived hope of finally being rescued from the cage has given way to something else. Honey. Her husband mumbles and gently strokes her cheek. But the gesture does not help to appease the woman. She abruptly pushes him away as far as the narrow cage allows. It was there, and it was gone. The woman seems to be hysterical. It may be a combination of the cold, claustrophobia, and dehydration, but the woman must have fallen victim to delusions. You sincerely hope that she calms down before she infects the others with her scaremongering. The younger couple screams in unison. It's my most enthusiastic ever. Panicked, they press themselves against the bars, and against each other, and then against the rest of the group. Their eyes are searching the water. There was something slimy on my leg. The woman squeaks in a trembling voice. On my ankle. Her boyfriend adds. His voice is unusually high-pitched. Maybe it was a small fish. They swim in shallow water too, the elderly man says in order to calm the group again. If anything, I'm rather surprised we haven't had a visitor before. We admire him for his efforts to lift the mood, but no one pays him any attention. Eek. What was that? Several people in the cage shout. Was this a shoal of fish swimming around your legs? Was this a shoal? Shoal of fish. I'm not familiar though. Was this a shoal of fish swimming around your legs? There! Something slippery wraps itself around your ankles. You try to scream as loudly as you can. Yay! The loudly squeal into the night. The others in the cage instinctively move away from you. The people with frightened partners give you reproachful looks. Pull yourself together for God's sake, growls the elderly gentleman again. Determined to get through this evening with dignity. That's not a fish. Oh my God. Look! Something is pressing against the cage from the outside. And indeed, as the woman said earlier, it's not human. It's a sea creature that could be straight out of a 1950s horror movie. The scaly creature, however, is not a man in a fish costume. It is much too lifelike and big for that. It must be at least 6'6", maybe more. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. The body is bent forward, and its mighty arms and claw-like hands are wrapped around two bars of the cage. The head emerges directly from a thick bull's neck, and it has huge swollen eyes and broad mouth whose long teeth sprout past the lips. The head of the thing looks like a goddamn fish, of the kind that are said to live miles below sea level in deep trenches. The only saving grace is the fact that the weak moonlight leaves some parts of his body in uncertainty. The group has quickly moved to the other side of the cage. The gaze of the thing wanders over worried faces. His throat gives off a sinister rumble. You try too. Loud noises or communicate with it? Let's try to talk with it. Communicate, please. The creature is focused on the rest of the group. It looks at the couples that have huddled together anxiously. You clear your throat. The fish creature turns its massive head in your direction. Do you understand me? You ask with loud, clear words. Nothing. No reaction. Begin to wonder if there's anything at all going on beyond those big eyes and how big the brain might be, with which this mighty creature was blessed. The creature blinks, two skin flaps shut vertically over the eyes. It's an unnatural sight that sends another shiver down your spine. With a jerk, the creature pushes itself off the cage and dives into the next wave. It's gone.
God, you're such a dick.
This is one of the young ladies.
But who means well?
The elderly man says. Okay, fine. Maybe he's not that bad. Maybe you should have asked for his name, or the name of anyone here. But that ship has probably sailed. The sound tears you away from those important thoughts. A short, quick splash. Wendy! Screamed one of those who stood in the far corner of the cage. She's gone. You approached the others to get a better idea of what happened. She was standing next to me, then she simply sank under. Something pulled her into the water. That's impossible. How would... Tourist conversation is interrupted. Wendy emerges from the water, on the other side of the cage. Irritated, she rubs water from her eyes. She takes a few steps and lets herself be moved forward by a light wave until she notices all of you. She spins around.
What? How did that? What was...
She stops. In her wet bathrobe, she now stands shivering in the water. Alone. Get help. What happened? Climb onto the key. What happened? You ask straight out.
That slippery thing was there again. I felt it felt around my knee, tighter and tighter.
She strokes a wet strand of her hair from her face.
Then it just dragged me down. I don't know. It pulled me underground. I kicked and kicked. Then it let go.
The ground. The soil must be looser than we thought. You hear someone whisper hopefully. Two of the men dive down. After a few seconds, they reappear. They take a breath and disappear into the water again. They repeat this 3 more times. Then they appear and wipe the dirt and salt water off their faces. The bars go deep, but I think it stops. This thing goes about 3 feet deep into the ground. 3 feet. That should be doable. Wendy rubs her arms. She's shaking. Get help or climb on the cage? Let's climb on the cage. That's a good supervisor move. Climb onto the cage. You shout at her. This should be the only safe and dry place at the moment. Good idea, says someone appreciatively. Finally, someone who recognizes that you are full of great ideas. Wendy trudges through the water back to the metal scaffolding, and after exchanging a few kisses with her lover, she actually manages to climb up onto the cage. Exposed to the rough wind, she sits shivering on the metal bars. Wendy curls into a ball and claws her hands into her wet bathrobe. Can't really see her face through the metal bars, but the young woman seems to be in shock. She just shut down. At least she's safe. A blood-curdling scream tears you back to reality. Then both men and women start screeching, confused. They try to get an overview of the situation. The group inside the cage has been decimated by one more person. Oh God, Alan, the young man cries. Everyone presses themselves against the metal bars. For a moment, the hope to see the man emerge from the water like Wendy lets them forget the danger they're in. Curious and overwhelmed by the situation, you join in. You look out into the sea. You don't have to wait long. Something slides around your cage just below the water surface. It comes up briefly, but you cannot make out much amid the foamy water. The only thing you do notice is that it's bigger than the creature that paid you a visit earlier. Maybe this time it was a fish. You never thought that one day you'd long for a shark. Ah. Startled, you turn your gaze away from the water outside. A young couple has disappeared right from your midst. The remaining 3 women and 4 men cling together, their faces distorted into grimaces of pure horror. You... Stay away from them. Whatever is decimating your numbers has so far only picked people from the small group. Your best chance, you conclude, is to keep your distance. This can't be happening. All this can't be happening, the elderly lady mumbles while her husband cradles her in his arms. You watch helplessly as another woman is pulled underwater, and her boyfriend, who is clinging to her, is dragged down along with her. The dozen people have shrunk by about half. You realize you have to act now. Your heart's pounding. Simply don't move at all. Oh, shit. You don't move. Wasn't that the trick in one of those old movies? The monster could feel the ground vibrate? You already want to pat yourself on the back when there's something cold wrapping itself around your ankles. Holy shit, is that working? Oh no. Tentacles pull you into the depths of the sea. Innsmouth waves, take me home to that place I belong. Okay, so that didn't work. We died. The concierge was right. In the parking lot, there's a little bus. Okay, so this is where we're going to the wellness program. I still wish I had done a bad choice in the previous chapter. I'm assuming if I slept, all sorts of cool shit would have happened. So let's skip the parts we've already read, since we've already read this. Good afternoon. Is this the wellness program Caligula? Yep. Alright, so here we are on Das Bus. Let us sit... Oh no, actually. Let's greet everyone. We did that already, but... Dearly beloved, my name is Ezekiel. It's my pleasure to welcome you. You look around indecisively. I can't talk to the driver, so interview everyone. At the very least, we'll be on the investigation again. 3 people did know. The girl disappeared a week ago. Yep. They saw her. Can you be more specific? The 2 giggle happily. We tried a few games in the arcades. How do I find the arcades? When you stand in the town... Okay, so we did that one actually. They gave me instructions. On your left you see houses, on the right you saw the thingy. The bus finally turns into a road. On your right you can see the sea. I will look at the houses this time. You pointedly sit down on the side of the bus facing away from the harbor. You have always been someone who swims against the current for no particular reason. Houses, well. Admittedly, as with the town center, you find it remarkable that the buildings are not collapsing in on themselves. As far as the eye can see, only rotten warehouses, narrow apartment buildings, and shipyards. Now and then, your heart skips a beat when a pair of creepy pop eyes peek out from behind twitching curtains. Has your throat been so dry the whole time? The bus leaves the paved road and goes down a narrow gravel path that leads directly to the beach. So we've read this, so I'm going to skip it. Final destination, best movie never made. One after another, get off the bus, he gestures you. Yep, got it. In our beach cabins, you'll find everything you need. You can lock up your clothes there. Oh, how lovely of you. They really spoil you here. So let's do things different. Maybe these people have completely lost their morals. What the hell? Why didn't anyone tell you that you're supposed to get undressed here? And now they want you to lock up your belongings in a shack that looks suspiciously like an outhouse? You cancel the wellness program. Without me, you cry out to Ezekiel with your chest full of pride. Nobody's gonna make me. But before you can set out your heroic reasoning, the rest of the group is already on its way. They leave you by yourself at the dunes. Ah, damn it. What good is pride if nobody witnesses it? Forlorn, you look around. What now? To the arcades. They called me XXX Noob Slayer. 555 XXX. The game's arcade is hard to miss. At the end of the dead shopping street, a shrill neon sign draws attention to itself. You think it looks rather retro, although the people of Innsmouth will probably think it's state-of-the-art design. Just readjusting myself here. As you approach, familiar sounds start ringing in your ears. A heady mix of cheaply produced gun sounds, sound effects, and mysterious sounds from pinball machines. This cocktail of synth effects gives you a jolt of nostalgia. Happy memories flood your brain. Your first beat-em-up game was when your opponent, a super limber septuagenarian yoga dude who played the boxer, ripped you apart, and all those exciting moments when you managed to win. That word, holy fuck. A few tourist families who have ventured into the city center with you were all dragged in here by their excited children. Now you too pass through the gates to the realm of flashing lights and bad ventilation. It's extremely dark and the screens of the devices appear to be only light source. Families, slackers, groups of teenagers, and individual children crowd together in front of screens to catch a glimpse of the games that are currently being played or to have a shot at playing themselves. The arcade is smaller than the elaborate archway initially suggested, but the equipment is not so bad for a small coastal town. Everything is beeping and flashing. Look for the missing girl. Now, look at the games. One of the most important lessons you have learned, not from your own cases but from television, is to look out for the small things. Only an absolute beginner would ignore the slot machines and look for the missing girl straight away. You, on the other hand, are playing the long game. Maybe you'll see her name token on one of the high score tables. Maybe you'll be able to improve your own reflexes, toughen yourself, and steel your nerves by playing a few rounds. The little girl's missing, but you'd rather play a round of computer games. But don't worry, no one will ever find out. How often will you return to Innsmouth, you ask yourself? The answer, of course, is hopefully never again. So you might as well make the most of it and try to leave new high scores for posterity. You're interested in... Let's go for a retro game. You can see a bunch of old machines which look like they're from the late 80s. There are barely any people here. A lot of the small screens show a swirl of flashing pixels that are barely recognizable as games. Some of them even have two colors. At least the games are cheap. They beep, they flash and beep. Better not touch them, my ass. Try playing them for a little bit. You think about which classic game to play. Let's play P-Fried. It's a kind of jump and run. In this game, you're an office worker called P-Fried, whose tie keeps sticking out at a weird angle. Is that like a Dilbert reference? The game seems to have only one kind of level, but the color of the graphics keep changing. The only type of enemy are your co-workers who keep throwing paperwork at you. You too throw paperwork back at them. It's all a bit boring. Yeah, switch to another game. I wish to play Pixel Bus. I know the reference to this one. Polybus, the game that doesn't exist. At least you've heard of these other games, but you've never heard of Pixel Boost. The machine looks incredibly old. You put in a quarter and begin. It turns out to be kind of a puzzle with geometric shapes and colors. The soundtrack is super trippy. Your thoughts turn one final time to the missing girl that you're supposed to find, but when the game starts, you devote yourself entirely to it. It's entertaining. Oh, I could keep playing. Yeah, keep playing. The subsequent levels involve more shapes and colors, but no missing girls. Next level. The next level adds in numbers. Yeah, exactly what every child wants in their games. Math. This is boring, you think to yourself. Stop playing. Keep going. It's even spelled with Leetsburg. Even more numbers and letters. Come on, you don't come here for an algebra course. Stop. Fuck you, keep playing. The screen fills with numbers and special signs. Slowly, a pattern seems to emerge. I'm surprised I'm able to read this. If only your nose would stop bleeding. Would stop bleeding. Keep playing more. Hell yeah. Portal calculation must continue to... Outside of the known universe, the blind and manic demonic sultan dances around himself. The piper's flute keeps the idiotic chaos at bay, threatening to devour the whole cosmos. Bubbling and shapeless as a thought, in the center of all eternity, right its ever-expanding edges, endless eons since the inception of being, and until he puts an end to existence itself. Soul-destroying and demented, the ever-glowing atomic fire, forever he will. You wake up. Big mistake. You instantly experience severe pain at your temples. You curl up in a state of catatonic self-pity. Slowly, too slowly, the pain subsides to a rhythmic pulsation behind your forehead. You open your eyes again. Everything around you is much too bright. It stinks of vomit and garbage. The latter is explained by garbage bags you realize you've been using as pillows. Tired and trembling, you stand up and steady yourself against the wall. That's by far the worst hangover you've ever experienced in your long career as a semi-professional hangover collector. It's the kind of hangover that all other hangovers pray to in hangover Sunday school. What is going on? You try to remember details about where you are right now and how you got here. Your date of birth, anything. You touch your face and realize that your mouth is covered in dried up blood. Your memory slowly returns. Yes, you are in the alley behind an amusement arcade. You're in Innsmouth. You're looking for a child? Maybe, but everything after entering that place is gone. You seem to have been thrown out a back exit. There's an old beer keg on which some rainwater is pulled. You wash your face and stagger back, unsure of what happened. The evening has already begun. Have you really wasted the whole afternoon here? It's unfortunate, but a good investigator knows when to admit defeat. After all, you were paid in advance. It's time to go to the hotel. Oh, shit. Okay, so we didn't collect any clues. We kept playing games. That could be a problem later. A gray veil covers the town, the light of the sun drains away, and with it, any residual heat. Although Innsmouth is a boring coastal town and probably doesn't have any street gangs, you can feel relieved when you see the gables of the Gilman Hotel. On your way here, you distinctly felt as if someone or something was following you. You could swear there were shadows. They were only visible for a fraction of a second whenever you entered an alley. These fleeting shadows, they are still there, lurking somewhere in the dark. You can feel it in your gut. You'll soon be safe. The growing paranoia, the constant glances over your shoulder. Soon, you can forget about all of that. Grabbing a bottle of Jack is the only movement required once you're in your hotel room. The parking lot in front of the hotel is completely empty. Have all the guests left? Does Innsmouth even have a peak tourist season? Fortunately, the entry gate is not locked. In fact, everything seems just as it did this afternoon when you left the hotel. Not a soul around. The chandeliers light your way into the foyer and the creaking floorboards welcome you. As you enter the foyer, you can hardly believe your eyes. Who's waiting for you at the reception? None other than Cornelius Gilman III, and you could swear he's in exactly the same pose in which you left him. He stands motionless at the reception desk. Let's go ahead and greet him. You can't just completely ignore the only other person in the building. You stroll leisurely to the reception desk and nod at Cornelius. Nice to see you. I trust your staying at Innsmouth has been pleasant so far. He smiles. Don't you ever go to the bathroom? Don't you ever go to the bathroom? You had already wanted to ask him about this earlier. Of course, Cornelius replies in a conversational tone. But a good concierge distinguishes himself by always being on hand when his guests need him. Astonishing. Although you're not sure that anybody really needs a creepy grinning puppet, it's the thought that counts. You walk up the stairs to your floor. Then you stroll along the long corridor until you reach the fork with the deceptive mirror. You briefly consider your appearance. You look simply gorgeous. The sea air really agrees with you. Noble paleness on your cheeks, alert eyes, and your hairline high above your intellectual-looking forehead. A good day. You venture deeper into the bizarre labyrinth of this hotel. You manage to find your room and you only get lost once on the way. You quietly open the door and enter. Well, it is barely necessary to switch on the light. You walk towards one of the windows and look out into the starry sky. A huge, strangely green glowing moon illuminates your room like a spotlight. The whole room is plunged into a surreal glow. Unfortunately, there are no window blinds to block out the light. Curtains right there, though. Just great. Okay, so last time we chose not to go to bed. I guess this time, let's go ahead and go off to bed and see what happens. Although it is a different chapter. You drop on the bed like someone who has no intention of ever getting up again. Changing clothes after a long day out before going to bed is for suckers, and for people with a basic sense of hygiene. But that's not who you are, and you're oddly pleased about it. With these thoughts in mind, you doze off for a bit. You transition fluidly into your dreams. You've only just closed your eyes and you're already somewhere else. Suddenly, your worries are very different. You're running in a desolate, gray maze of winding alleys. You can hear the cheerful laughter of a small child. If only you could catch up, you could save the child and take them home to safety. You spring down the path and turn around the corner, then around another. The alleyway stretches out in front of you, but there's no person to be seen anywhere. What was that? Was that a shadow at the corner of the street back there? A silhouette of a figure? You realize that someone is following you. Should we run faster? No. Look over your shoulder. Cast a hasty glance over your shoulder, then you see them out of the corner of your eye. Shadows. But they have repugnant bodies. You can't really put it any differently. You catch glimpses of oily skin, swollen boils, and even tentacles. But nothing stays in one place. Everything seems to be constantly moving around. A body in metamorphosis. Patches of skin tear open and close again with awful smacking sounds. Briefly catch a glimpse of the thing that was following you silently. You know that you've already seen more than you should have. That short glance was more than enough. No human being can stand looking at this creature without completely losing their mind. It's right behind you. The figure in the distance has already disappeared behind the next corner. Maybe you can still catch up with it. The alleyways wind through the town in confusing ways. Nothing makes sense anymore. Wherever you move, you never arrive in the place you expected to. It feels as if, slowly but surely, you're walking right into the jaws of a massive monster. All of a sudden, the walls close in on you, and the path becomes so narrow that you have to walk sideways in order to fit through. Whatever's behind you is getting closer. There's not much time left. Face the creature. There's madness to be had. I'm in. There's no point in following with this endless labyrinth forever. With bated breaths, you turn around and look down the street you just came from in order to face whatever's pursuing you. No matter how hard you try, your eyes refuse to look directly at it. The tentacled meatball right in front of you seems to be only a small outgrowth of the much larger but also shapeless and impossible creature that is following you. You begin to despair. You look at it directly. It wasn't so bad after all, you thought when you opened your eyes. Panting, you wake up. In one panic movement, you throw the blanket off the bed. What a nightmare. At least, it's over now. Your room is still plunged into the greenish light from the moon. It's still the middle of the night. Sleep is out of the question for now. Look out the window. You approach the window. Even from a distance, the light of the moon blinds you. Everything is bathed in an unreal green shimmer. The stately houses across the hotel, the neglected, wildly growing hedges on the sidewalk, the mob armed with torches looking up at your room. What? They're staring up at you. It's hard to tell who these hooded people are. Without wanting to be prejudiced, you assume that they are the good citizens of Innsmouth. Some of the figures point with their torches to your room on the higher floor. Then they limp towards the hotel entrance. You briefly wonder if these kind people might know anything about missing children. Shall we? Let us barricade the door. They won't come into your room at this time of night. You're a good girl. A blockade should buy you some time. It's almost as if the panic gives you superhuman strength. Without losing much time, you pile up cupboards and wedge them together to build a strong defense. Someone slips a key in the lock to your room from the outside. Your insides cramp. How is it possible that the strangers have access to your room? But your grudge against Mr. Gilman must wait. You have other worries right now. Piling up a small furniture barricade would not be a problem had you not injured your arm earlier. Oops. Every exertion is accompanied by a painful flare-up of inflamed nerve endings. The huge swelling on your elbow also just wants to be left alone. While you're still struggling to move one of the cupboards, the door to your room is pushed open with sheer force. Your barricade was too weak. A small crowd of people piles into your room. Before you know it, you're surrounded by strangers. Malicious eyes sparkle under the hooded robes that everyone, except the leader, is wearing. A man with sunken cheeks and sparse hair, the look in his eyes is so piercing that you wish he was wearing a hood. He stands directly opposite of you and begins a chant. Cthulhu, the rest of the people join in. They're still staring at you. The leader drifts his arms into the air. Only now do you realize he's holding something shiny in his hand. For Father Dagon, for Mother Hydra. His arms come down fast, and with a terrible pain spreads in your chest. Ecstatic cheering is the last thing you heard. a sacrifice to the gods. You are offered as a sacrifice to Dagon. Congratulations? I think that went well.